furthers the story by being the writer's pet, probably a self-insert. Basically, the classic definition. Now, I still stand by my original Mary Sue video. In fact, here at Terrible Writing Advice, I still advocate for
How did that even happen?
be a Mary Sue.
Probably something stupid and simple. People don't know the term, so they try to come up with what it means themselves rather than try to actually look it up.
Background characters, suddenly Sue-ful.
And since Mary Sue always has a negative connotation, they assume the simple, that Mary Sue just means a character that sucks.
Hear me out. If other people think that writing a Mary Sue is bad, oh no, I didn't think about that. Other writers, and more importantly, random people in internet comments, might declare me not a real writer. The worst thing you can be. I shall write fiction so grand, so perfect, and so great that no one will ever declare my characters a Mary Sue. Every last person on Earth will all universally agree that my work is in fact objectively perfect in every way, and all my characters are totally deep, complicated, and multifaceted reflections of the human condition. All of humanity has never agreed on a single thing, but I'm sure all fandoms, who are infamous for starting endless flame wars over which not real people should hook up, will be willing to set aside their differences to agree that my characters are not a Mary Sue. Not to keep your expectations realistic, fear not, for I'll let you know how to avoid the pitfalls of accidentally writing a Mary Sue, and definitely not leave writers vulnerable to falling into this completely different set of pitfalls right next to it. So let Terrible Writing Advice show writers how to ace those "is this character a Mary Sue" test, and show writers how not to write a Mary Sue. Now, the first thing every writer learns when they are trying to avoid writing Mary Sues is that Mary Sues never have flaws. They are perfect in every way. Therefore, the best way to not write a Mary Sue is to
If I can get to a farming point, that
mean
would be a
the
good
writer
start,
can just add a
since
flaw or two to
then I
the
can get
character
more
and
money.
call it a day? Why, yes. Yes, it does. This includes flaws like too beautiful, or can't choose between hunky billionaire werewolf or hunky billionaire Highlander. You know, real problems that everyone deals with. But if a few flaws are good, then a bunch of flaws are even better. Just keep lumping on all kinds of character flaws until the character collapses under the weight of them. Realistic flaws can sometimes make a character easier to identify with, ground their characterization, and simply make them more interesting. But we're not shooting for realistic or interesting, but instead trying to throw off those naysayers in the comments who claim my character is a Mary Sue. Writing characters with flaws works best when flaws are treated like perks on an RPG character building system. They give you points to buy more abilities. Flaws can be taken seemingly at random and have no connection to the theme, tone, or even the character's motivations, backstory, or most importantly, character traits. A writer definitely shouldn't see character flaws as the flip side to character strengths, which form a complete character trait. Simply assume that character flaws automatically make a character more interesting, rather than being an element that merits some consideration, or something that can naturally result from solid characterization. Another Mary Sue trait is that everything always goes their way. So naturally, the best way to avoid writing a Mary Sue is to make every single thing in the story go wrong for them, all the time. This will make the audience feel sorry for them. The audience will just ignore how contrived it begins to look when the character tried to get her morning coffee, but it somehow resulted in her dog being run over by the repo truck that towed away her car before she could drive her dying grandmother to the hospital. Then the coffee caught fire and burned her house down. When a character endures hardships, humiliation, or otherwise experiences tragedy, it can build both empathy and sympathy with the audience, provided the audience feels the character is worthy of it. Lump too much crap on them, and the audience will simply sympathize harder, not start laughing at how ridiculous it is. Will the audience feel sympathy for a deeply unlikable character who refuses to improve their situation? Of course! When a writer wants a character to be likable, obviously the writer is trying to make a Mary Sue.
Wait, did the enemy do
I should
that?
make my character as unlikable as possible. Who wants to read about likable characters anyway? Only amateurs who stupidly write Mary Sues want to pin characters that people would actually enjoy spending time with. That's not how to write. That even extends to the character doing anything in the story that's actually important. Another common Mary Sue quality is that they are essential drivers of the plot, and that everything that happens is about them. This problem can be easily avoided if the character merely does nothing at all. They just passively sit there and do nothing while the plot bends around them like a black freaking hole. There There's nothing wrong with the reactive character rather than an active character, but to make sure no one calls my character Mary Sue, I will have them just sit there and have stuff happen around them rather than take a single action that would move them closer to achieving their goals, which they don't have anyways. My character would never have a goal or motivation because only a Mary Sue would actually want things. What about abilities? Well, Mary Sue has all kinds of cool powers and abilities, so my character will not have any, even if it would make no sense for the setting. If the writer does want, then they can give the character a couple of worthless powers. No one can complain that my character is the center of everything and super special, even if she's the only non-magic user at a school made only for magic users. Is it that overpowering magic powers can rob the story of any tension if used excessively? Is it that overwhelming powers and abilities can still be made interesting by having the character use them in fun and unique ways? No, I can't think of a single popular story that features an overpowered main character. If they did, then that character would be a Mary Sue and therefore not a good character. And no one loves Mary Sue. I mean, outside of the fiction at least. Now that I have a character that is completely unlikable, has no abilities, way more personality flaws than is reasonable, and has zero ability or motivation to move the plot forward, there is no way they could be called a Mary Sue, even if all the characters still obsess over her. The entire universe still bends and revolves around her, and she is still the star of the story. What? You think just because she's described as super ugly, that all the attractive cast still won't fawn over her? Can't have that. The whole point is to stop the audience from accusing her of being a Mary Sue, not stop me from writing an indulgent character whose presence hurts the story.
You know what? I kind of think Nachiru
is
a Mary Sue.
Mary Sue would never do that. I mean, the story bends over backwards to make sure all of her monumental screw-ups don't matter while all the characters just forgive her for some reason, but she still technically makes them, which makes her technically not a Mary Sue. Ha! Man, I'm smart. I've treated all the symptoms, so the disease should magically disappear. Besides, other characters still do stuff on their own, like buy my main character gifts, so it's not like she's still the center of the universe. I can't have my character share any of the common Mary Sue traits. See, this massive glut of articles on the internet says so. It's full of common Mary Sue traits that you never see in extremely popular characters from successful franchises. I can't think of a single popular character that's super attractive, has amazing superpowers and abilities, literally has the plot revolve around them, and are special enough to have the fates of entire universe-shaking prophecies hinge on their actions. Obviously no one wants that, and it would never sell. Could it be that Mary Sue is so hated, particularly in fanfiction, because she often usurps the roles of already popular characters while failing to mimic the character qualities that made them so popular in the first place? And that people consume fanfiction typically to enjoy spending more time with the characters that they love, only to find that this glittery hair, eye color changing, stale biscuit of a character is there bending the main cast to her will with zero blowback from anyone. Well, except for maybe the story commenters and reviews. No flames, please. In original fiction, Mary Sues can typically be the result of simply poor
I see
execution
that a
and
lot in some
favoritism getting in the way
fanfiction.
of storytelling. I could try to dissect exactly what makes Mary Sue so likable, but I think I'll instead fixate on all those common traits everyone keeps talking about. This makes taking all those Mary Sue tests that float around on the internet an excellent use of time. What a great way to learn characterization, reducing Mary Sue to a freaking power level. This is definitely a useful tool, not a complete waste of time better spent just writing and learning through mistakes. I don't have time to write. I have to spend time worrying about what other writers will think of me. What if a big successful writer tells me I'm no good at writing because I wrote a Mary Sue? Yes, super successful writers clearly have time to personally tell other writers that they're writing wrong. And not even the writers. I have to worry about everyone on the internet calling my character a Mary Sue.
Yes, blind the egg.
Must be liked by everyone. Everyone who writes Mary Sues does so because they are lazy. If you put in enough work, then you can make a work that's perfect. That's how that works. That's why I've never met a writer still workshopping their first book for over a decade. It's a matter of sheer effort, not experience. Put in enough time and I can write the best story in the world. And when my story becomes mega popular, there will not be a single person on the planet call my protagonist a Mary Sue.
Oops.
Every writer should carry this exact
Well, to
expectation.
be fair, the book I'm currently obsessing over is not my first revision. It's not my first book. That would be my okay
on planet Earth will become a mega fan, rather than simply accept that a lot of people aren't going to like my work.
Oh, and
that's
also
okay.
I am gonna
Don't worry,
try
it's not a
writing
matter
for
of
my final
when
exam.
someone calls a character a Mary Sue. Only if they do.
As a visual
That if
novel.
being if anyone bothers to read my work at all. But why wouldn't they?
assuming
My work is Mary
I
Sue
get enough
free.
time with my stupid
Corporations take
schedule.
note. This style of character creation is great for big franchises that have achieved the coveted cash cow status. Don't make a new character or a good character when we can make a planned, committee-designed character with as much personality as a wet potato, but with none of the potential to cook into something
I wonder
actually
if I can
good.
ignore
This
these.
character can't be Mary Sue, because if they were, they might actually be more interesting. It's important for the writer to understand what the audience wants from a character in fiction, and people are great at articulating exactly what they want and never complain about it when they get it to the letter. People obviously don't want a character that they can project onto, feel special, do interesting things, or any other qualities. They want something that's so bland and tasteless that it would ace every Mary Sue test ever, because the character is never there to make the story worth enjoying. They're there because I don't want to get called out for writing a Mary Sue. Never mind that characters can be deeply unlikable, self-centered, a huge jerk, and still be fascinating to read or watch. So can a character that is likable, selfless, and kind, because all of those traits, both positive and negative, serve the story or their characterization. Which is a mistake, because obviously character and story should be beholden to the author's anxieties instead. The important thing is to indulge. Just rather than the author's wish fulfillment, it's instead the author's anxieties. If only there were a way between a self-indulgent, blatant Mary Sue and a bland, boring, play-it-safe character. If only there were a way to write characters that have traits that encompass both good and bad qualities depending on the circumstance, as well as a solid motive. Alas, I've played too many RPGs, and as such, can only see characters as a collection of stats and perks, rather than people with opinions and perspectives. My first work must be a magnum opus. When writing, you start out producing amazing works of art, rather than having to actually build skill through experience and learning from mistakes. A writer can't just go ahead and write god-awful indulgent crap to get it out of their system. Never should a writer accept that. It's okay to be bad. You can always write something better later. But what then? Just not share it with the world? How will people know my character isn't a Mary Sue then? I must share my genius with the world, for the sake of seeking validation rather than focusing on improvement. Then I'll spend the rest of my time on the internet arguing semantics over what is and isn't a Mary Sue, which for a writer is a great use of time and resources. Fixating on the label Mary Sue is way more productive than just focusing on writing a good character. A perfect writer can never write a Mary Sue. A writer must be perfect and loved by everyone and never make a mistake or have any flaws and be the best, most amazing writer that everyone always talks about and obsesses over all the time. I must become the most special, important writer ever that everything revolves around. Only then will I be uh-oh.
Federation sold us a fresh batch, I see. Move along, prisoners. Hey, he's got the old rig.
Old rig?
Yeah, the old Mark 1 innovation rig. We're already on Mark 2. Don't worry, they'll update you after orientation.
Orientation? Welcome, scum, to Wagwater, Megacorp's elite mercenary company. Wait, we're going to be soldiers of fortune. Does that mean I'm finally going to get my war?
Oh, no, we don't use the big W word anymore. Focus Group says that's a no-no. We prefer the term security contract. We're not invading. We are providing prompt and direct security services. As a new security defense associate, it's very important that you maintain Wagwater's high standard of customer service, especially considering Wagwater is a subsidiary of Megacorp. Unless you get into trouble, in which case Megacorp has no idea who you are.
That just sounds like sales.
The orientation video will explain it better.
Oh damn, they are worth a
Terrorism got you
frick
down?
ton of money.
Democratic reformers trying to mess up a perfectly good
How did I get
military
more than
junta?
3? I thought
More client states asserting their sovereignty? Megacorp has a solution for you! Wagwater Security Company. Don't settle for any old soldier of fortune. Wagwater provides high-energy security solutions for a new age to actualize your earning potential. And now it's your turn to become part of the team. As a new security defense associate, you will be expected to maintain a high standard of customer service at all times. If a client insists on committing a war crime, you are to refuse in no uncertain terms. Unless they purchase the gold plan. Be sure to also offer our false flag service to cover up the crime and snag that upsell. All sales made by a security defense associate give a commission that will be put towards reducing your sentence. Just remember that all equipment will be charged to you, including spent ammunition, so make them count. Complete your full tour of duty, and you may even be given a chance to join the rest of Megacorp in Nebula. Secure your place now before the rest of the TWA expanded universe explodes in a vortex of unsustainable greed.
Wait, what?
But let's not focus on that. Get excited for your new dream platform, Nebula. Exciting opportunities await, along with outstanding Nebula originals, like real-time history series on the Soviet nuclear program called Red Atoms, or Lindsay Ellis's Nebula original on Jurassic Park. These are all exclusive to Nebula. Nebula is a streaming platform built by YouTubers, podcasters, and other creatives. Should YouTube fall, the TWA universe will live on thanks to Nebula, a place free from YouTube's fickle policies allowing for experimentation in content. Signing up using TWA's link also gets you free access to Nebula classes, where the creators of Nebula offer you tricks and tips for being a creator, or just generally good advice, like Simon Clark's Turn Data into Stories, Georgia Dow's extremely useful class on beating anxiety, or how to analyze stories and enrich your own from the mind behind like stories of old. Support the channel, secure your place before it's too late. Use the link in the description and escape to Nebula today!
I don't know why I'm leveling these guys up. I'm gonna be resetting their level
The CEO's action don't plan to save any of you
in a
jobs.
bit.
More space for us. See offer for more details. Well, I hoped we all learned something inspiring. It's important to maintain high-quality customer service when we when we provide satisfaction guaranteed security service. And for our first security contract, you will finally remove those pesky space communists to pave the way for greed's ultimate ascension.
Killing space communists? Great! Federation's democracy didn't work out. Maybe corporations running things won't be so bad.
I'm not gonna bother. It's just something I wanna try. Well, it was too good to be true. How about I just explore for a bit? Until an FOE shows up to ruin my day. What?
For the last few years, this video series has been about contiguous, interconnected, maze-like worlds in games such as Metroid Prime, Hollow Knight, and Elden Ring. So, you might be surprised to see me feature a pair of colourful collectathon platformers with disconnected worlds. But there's a method to my madness. You see, while Banjo-Kazooie is definitely divided into distinct levels with little to no overlap, the sequel, Banjo-Tooie, is far more interconnected and complex. Almost all of the levels join up through shortcuts and secret routes. Changes in one level can impact events in another, and you'll be routinely backtracking to old stages to solve puzzles and collect objects. It is, at times, a Metroidvania. But is that actually an improvement over the first game, or just needless complexity added to a winning formula? Well, let's find out. I'm Mark Brown, and this is Boss Kings. Now, before we can talk about Banjo-Tooie, we have to start at the start and look at the first game of the series, Banjo-Kazooie. This Nintendo 64 gem, though I'm playing the Xbox Live Arcade version for this video, started life as an isometric adventure game about a boy and a bunch of pirates for the Super Nintendo. But after switching hardware and seeing how Nintendo had changed the platforming paradigm with Super Mario 64, the game radically shifted to become a 3D platformer about a bear with a bird in its backpack. And that Mario 64 inspo can be felt pretty strongly. The game features a sprawling hub world. This time it's the lair of series baddie Gruntilda the Witch. The hub lets you transport to a collection of uniquely themed worlds, like an Egyptian desert and a snowy Christmas land. Inside, you collect shiny golden tokens, jigsaw pieces, and musical notes rather than stars and coins, and those tokens give you access to new parts of the hub and, in turn, new worlds. Plus, while there's loads of stuff to find and do if you want to completely 100% finish the game, you only need a few Jiggies to face the final boss and finish the game. But Banjo is definitely not a straight rip-off. Banjo and Kazooie feel quite different to control when compared to Mario. The whole game has a snarky British sense of humour. You're not booted out of worlds when fighting Jiggies, something Mario wouldn't change until Odyssey. And I'd say the game leans slightly more on puzzle-focused challenges and less on ones that reward pure platforming prowess. So the game features 9 levels. There's Mumbo's Mountain, Treasure Trove Cove, Clanker's Cavern, Bubble Gloop Swamp, Freezeezy Peak, Gobi's Valley, Mad Monster Mansion, Rusty Bucket Bay, and Click Clock Wood. all culminating in a totally unorthodox final level, a high-stakes game show featuring trivia related to the game you just played. These levels are fairly small and compact, but even still, they feature a number of clever tricks to help you orient yourself in the level. Stages are usually split into distinct zones, like Gobi's Oasis, Sphinx, and Pyramids, to break the level into organised chunks. You also get plenty of weenies, you know, those giant landmarks that provide a constant visual guide no matter where you are in the stage. Some levels use a hub and spoke system, like Bubble Gloop Swamp, where the 5 different zones fan off from a single central area. And while all of the levels feature additional subrooms, they are always accessed from clearly identifiable doorways, like the pyramids in Gobi's Valley and the boat in Rusty Bucket Bay. So it's easy to remember where they are. All of this stuff makes it easy to know where you have and haven't been in the level, and they help you return to places you've already visited,
Oh my
which
god, this
you may need
place
to
is
do
so
at certain
confusing.
times. For instance, some levels feature environments that are impossible for Banjo and Kazooie to traverse, like these super slippery slopes in the hill on Mumbo's Mountain. However, Banjo can unlock helpful transformations, like a walrus that can survive icy water, or a termite that can, crawl up slippery slopes. Now you can go back to that area and make further progress. Now, much like Mario 64, the levels are separate and standalone. What happens in Mad Monster Mansion stays in Mad Monster Mansion. But there are a few exceptions to this rule. Like in every level, you are able to collect all 10 Jiggies before moving on to the next stage, if you so wish. However, in World 5, Freeze Easy Peak, there's a Jiggy that requires the Turbo Trainers, which won't be unlocked until World 6, Gobi's Valley. This makes it the one instance where you can't get all 10 tokens on your first visit, and so you'll have to go back to a previously explored world if you want all the Jiggies in the game. There's also at least one moment where your actions in one level will have an impact on another. If you annoy Gobi the Camel in Gobi's Valley, he'll leave and show up in a later level, but if you ignore that quest line, he won't appear. Also, each level has a button that will make a Jiggy appear in the hub world, so you'll have to remember to track it down when you exit the stage. And you can actually leave levels while transformed, which can be used to solve puzzles in the hub. The termite transformation can be used to scale a steep hill outside Mumbo's Mansion, for instance, and the pumpkin from Mad Monster Mansion is needed to squeeze through this small gap. And there's also one level that cleverly shifts and changes depending on how you enter the world. I'm talking about the sometimes polarizing 9th level, Click Clop Wood. You open this level by hitting a flower switch and go inside to find a giant tree during the rainy spring season. Climb to the top of the tree and you'll find a sun button that will open another door in the hub, which, when entered, will bring you back to the exact same tree, but now in the summer. There are bees about, the tree has new leaves, and the lake has dried up, which gives you access to another button and lets you come back to the level again, this time in autumn, and, of course, once more for winter. Many of the Jiggies in this level require you to solve puzzles across separate seasons. For example, you can plant a seed in spring, water it in summer, and get a Jiggy in autumn. Or hatch a
this
baby
was
bird in
crap.
spring, feed it caterpillars in summer and autumn, and then watch it grow into a mighty eagle in the winter. And you can break this rock while the lake is dried up in summer, only to find the path behind it is too steep. So you'll have to come back in autumn when the water's back and swim up to finally get the reward. It's the sort of challenge that requires thoughtful consideration of the level and how it can change and adapt, and it rewards you for returning to the right place at the right time. It's a truly memorable level, reminiscent of Zelda dungeons and those clever Mario 64 stages that change depending on how you enter the world. It was also one of the hardest levels to make, according to designer Greg Mayles, who said it took twice as long as the other stages. And it's slightly infamous among some Banjo fans who find it more frustrating than fun due to the verticality, having to do the same tricky platforming in all different seasons, and the pain of falling down and having to do the whole thing all over again. It
Then
just
it's
goes to
Spotty
prove
getting
that it's
over its
easy
style.
for a clever idea to stumble due to implementation, a topic I'm sure we'll be returning to. So overall, Banjo-Kazooie is a really fun collectathon platformer with memorable characters, collectibles, and worlds, and a few clever ways to have the levels break out from their distinctly different zones. But for the sequel, released 2 years later, Rare decided to make interconnectivity a key part of the game, ensuring that every world would have some connection to another part of the game. But let's press pause on that for now, and start by talking about the levels individually and separately, because we need to know how they work alone before talking about how they intersect, and also because changes in Banjo-Tooie end up turning each level into a mini Metroidvania of sorts. So this time, the It levels are Mayhem Temple, Glitter Gulch Mine, Witchy World, Jolly Rogers Lagoon, Pterodactyl Land, Grunty Industries, Hailfire Peaks, and Cloud Cuckoo Land, with another game show at the end to top things off. The first change from Banjo 1 is that these new stages are, on the whole, much, much bigger. A level like Pterodactyl Land has a massive central chamber with a lot of verticality, and it splinters off into many different sub-areas. And Hailfire Peaks takes place on a sprawling volcano that is roughly the size of a Banjo-Kazooie level, before you realise that this is only half of the stage and there's a whole icy expanse on the reverse. All of the levels now have 4 warp points throughout to help speed up traversal, but little else is done to help with navigation. While I just praised Banjo-Kazooie for its level layouts that aid orientation, I often found it extremely difficult to find my way around in Banjo-Tooie. For example, in levels like Pterodactyl Land, Glitter Gulch Mine, and Hailfire Peaks, I could never remember, even across 2 whole playthroughs for this video, which nondescript tunnels led to which subrooms, and I routinely got lost in the maze-like underwater chambers of Jolly Rogers Lagoon. One stage stands out as a proud exception though, Witchy World. Taking influence from real-life theme parks, this level has a helpful hub-and-spoke system that keeps things organised. Using the big top tent as an obvious central weenie, the stage fans out in 4 directions for the entrance and the space, haunted house, and Wild West zones, which have unique signs, shapes, and colour palettes to keep them distinct. It's a breeze to explore and a sharp contrast to the rest of the game's more muddled levels. And orientation is important in a game that puts so much emphasis on re-exploring space. So, in Banjo-Kazooie, I talked about how in a few levels you could transform into critters like a termite or a crocodile and use their unique powers to overcome obstacles elsewhere in the stage. Banjo-Tooie takes this and amps it up dramatically, thanks to new character
nice, we discovered the rare one.
Humba Wumba. Every level now has a transformation, allowing you to become a stone statue, an explosive detonator, a fan, a submarine, a small T-Rex, a big T-Rex, a washing machine, a snowball, and a bee. Not only will you have to find your way back to the place where the transformations will grant access, but you'll often need to figure out an alternative route that works for their unique movement. For instance, it's effortless to jump up and reach this pressure-sensitive switch as Banjo and Kazooie, but as a heavy snowball with a 3-inch vertical, think again. Instead, you'll have to take a warp panel to the fireside, hot-foot it through here before melting, and then roll around to the button from above. But that's not all. This time you can also play as Mumbo Jumbo, who can make changes in the level when standing on these special spaces. But he's slow and dumpy when compared to Banjo and Kazooie, so you'll sometimes need to find another route for him to take. And also new for this sequel, Banjo and Kazooie can split up into 2 separate characters. This reveals a bunch of unique moves that can't be done when paired up, and leads to challenges where the bear and bird must work together, tag-teaming obstacles and puzzles. All of this stuff is pretty cool, forcing you to understand the level and its various paths and routes, and make intentional plans for how you'll get around with the unique abilities of the different characters. But this fun gameplay is let down in implementation, and not just by the confusing level layouts that make it tough to even find the place that you need to use the transformation. No, the real culprit is the tedium of actually activating these transformations. For instance, in Witchy World, you find this shut-down Dodgems ride, so you go all the way to Mumbo and switch to him. go back to the Dodgems to power up
You
the
guys
line.
saw that, right?
Inside is a
I need
money
to check
box,
that on the
so
recording.
back to Mumbo to become Banjo and Kazooie, then to Humba Wumba to become the van. Back to the Dodgems to pay the entry fee, then
I
back
thought
to
there was
Humba
someone
Wumba
behind
to
me.
turn back into Banjo Kazooie,
And I
and
was
then back
cornered.
to the Dodgems to finally play the minigame. There's similar frustration in finding one of these manholes which grant new abilities, only to be told that you need to split up and come back as either Banjo or Kazooie alone to actually learn the new move. And look, it's not Rare's worst game for this sort of character-changing nonsense, and the warp pads certainly do help, but it's still just needless bloat and backtracking that creates tedium and discourages free-form exploration and experimentation. A button to break Humba Wumba's magic spell and turn back into Banjo, or a button to call your partner back to you, would be a really nice addition. All of this comes to a head in Tui's most infamous level, Grunty Industries, a level that can go toe-to-toe with the Water Temple for perplexing Nintendo 64 owners. So this level is humongous, a 5-floor factory with an extra basement and rooftop for good measure. It's not too bad to navigate thanks to clear signs above most of the doors, but you'll probably need a notepad to remember what's on each floor. The true complication then comes from constantly changing characters. Many sections require you to split up, especially as Banjo needs to transport batteries around in his empty backpack to unlock electro-powered doors. Mumbo needs to make his way to various pads to turn off machinery, but the results are usually temporary, so you'll need to rush around to make any use of the change. And then there's the level's special transformation, the washing machine.
Holy
This
shit, this
allows
entire
access
stage
to
is a
service
mess.
lifts and some special rooms, but for some inexplicable reason, you can't use the warp pads. The machine also can't jump very high, meaning you'll often need to find alternative routes to get around. In fact, much of the level involves making routes and paths for the other playable characters, like dropping this Mumbo pad down from the attic, or lowering an elevator so the washing machine can pass this small gap. This leads to endless backtracking and character swapping. Now, many of the changes you make are permanent one-way modifications to the level, so it's more like slowly unpicking a knot rather than the brain-melting puzzle box shenanigans of a Zelda dungeon. But it's still a lot to keep in your head, as you must remember the status of so many floors, doors, and subrooms. Without good memory or notes, you can be wandering around aimlessly forever. Most players will spend double the time on this level than any other in the game.
So nothing is
Now, I
stopping me
did
from just
actually
doing
enjoy
this.
this level quite a lot because I'm a sicko.
And I think I will do that for a
Even
while.
Rare agrees that it was a lot to take in and that a decent in-game map would have helped things dramatically. So that's the individual levels. But now let's zoom out and look at the game as a whole. Because at first glance, the game is structurally similar to Banjo-Kazooie. There's a hub world, this time the Isle of Hags, where we can access the different levels. Each world has 10 jiggies to find again, and they can be used to unlock stages further into the hub. But even from the very first level, Mayhem Temple, things are different. We're immediately faced with obstacles that we can't overcome with the abilities on hand. And if you head through this tunnel and check the menu, you'll realise that you're actually in a completely different world, Pterodactyl Land, which you won't explore properly until you unlock World 5. It soon becomes clear that Banjo-Tooie is not a set of disconnected stages like Banjo-Kazooie, but actually an interwoven web of worlds that must be taken as a complete package. And this interconnectivity comes in a few different flavours. There's backtracking to old levels with new abilities, crisscrossing between worlds through shortcuts, and making changes in one world to create a knock-on effect in another. So let's start by talking about backtracking with abilities. Banjo-Tooie starts with all the moves you learned in Banjo-Kazooie, which is already quite a lot, and then gives you loads more throughout the adventure. There's about 20 additional abilities in all, including different types of egg ammo, extra attacks, healing moves, egg firing abilities, and highly situational puzzle-solving tools like Kazooie's ability to hatch eggs. Predictably, those new moves grant access to jiggies in the level where you unlock them. In Mayhem Temple, you get the Bree-Gull Blaster, which turns Kazooie into an egg-spitting shotgun and lets you get 2 jiggies from Target Sand's temple. But the moves, just as often, let you get jiggies in stages you've already been to. For instance, Mayahem Temple has a Jiggy that requires the Bill Drill from World 2, Glitter Gulch Mine, which in turn has a Jiggy that requires the Springy Step Shoes from World 5, Pterodactyl Land. World 4, Jolly Rogers Lagoon, needs the Glide from World 7, and World 6, Grunty Industries, needs the Sack Pack from World 8. That's not even all the Jiggies, and it also doesn't include additional collectibles like Jinjos, Cheeto Pages, Honeycomb Pieces, Treble Clefs, and so on. Now, as a concept, this is fine by me. Revisiting old areas with new tools, keys, and abilities is at the heart of Metroidvanias. And also, point-and-click adventures, a genre which Banjo-Tooie often feels reminiscent of. Plus, it's usually quick to return to old levels thanks to the hub, which is easier to traverse than the one in Banjo-Kazooie, and other interconnections that I'll talk about later. But the execution does leave something to be desired. For one, Banjo-Kazooie established that, barring one exception, every world can be finished with the abilities gained by that point. Banjo-Tooie throws that convention out completely, which is potentially confusing. And secondly, once the player does realise that Jiggies may be inaccessible until later, it's totally possible to assume that certain puzzles can't be solved with your current tools. This happened to me a fair few times. In Mayahem Temple there are 2 Jiggies being guarded by sleeping characters. I thought I'd maybe get some ability later on to help with this problem, but it turned out that I just needed to move the analog stick a small amount to make Banjo tiptoe silently. This confusion is actually a common issue in Metroidvanias. I once spent ages wandering around the world of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, looking for the way forward, only to realise that I just needed to use the feather I already had to wake Bower Bear. When you establish that your game is often about going elsewhere to find the path forward, it's not